to episode 47 of the Dorton and Duckett Debate Podcast. I am Lucas Dorton, joined by Nick Duckett on episode 47 here. First off, Nick, the hair, it's getting longer day by day here. The fans want to know, when are you going to cut it?
That's a good question. I said a year. Well, that was in August. So, I don't know. We're just letting her grow. Letting her grow, baby.
Letting it grow. Well, I suppose that's all you can do then. Oh, man.
I don't think I've had a haircut since we started this podcast.
I don't think you have. It's been cool to look back on each week and be like, oh, man, it grew a little bit more and a little bit more each time.
You bet.
Nice. Well, we'll just get right into it here. Decent amount of baseball news to talk about, which is nice because we were having a pretty slow offseason as far as moves went. But first, we'll start off with some football talk. And leading us off is Matthew Stafford, the big trade that happened there. The Lions sent Matthew Stafford to the LA Rams in exchange for the Rams' first-round picks in 2022 and 2023, a third-round pick in 2021, and Jared Goff. So, what are your thoughts? What are you thinking about this? Early reaction, winner, loser, what do you think?
Personally, I feel like the Rams gave up too much. Now, I'm not going to say it's a terrible trade because at the end of the day, I do think Stafford's an improvement over Goff. And this team did make a Super Bowl just 2 years ago or 3 seasons ago. And they won a playoff game this last year. So you say, well, you improved your quarterback slightly. Maybe that'll be the difference between, winning the Super Bowl rather than losing it with just a short while ago. However, I don't think it's going to be. And they just gave up a quarterback who's about, probably 7 or 8 years younger than Stafford, and some picks for a guy who's honestly, he's not old, but he's not that young. And although I think it's mainly to do with the team he's been on, he's never really had success either. Stafford's good. I'm not convinced he's great. And I feel they gave up too much. So I would say the the Lions won the deal.
Yeah, this is interesting, and I think I would agree too. Obviously Jared Goff, I don't think he's a bad quarterback. He gets the job done. But, I think that McVay obviously didn't trust him enough, and neither did the ownership to trust him enough. And when you have the head coach and the ownership that doesn't trust you, well, typically it's not going to end too well for you. Obviously, you mentioned he brought him to a Super Bowl a couple of years ago. And if he has a competent offensive game, maybe they win that Super Bowl. But they couldn't get anything done in that one. Also interesting too, with the first round picks, I want to get your thoughts on this. The Rams now will go 7 straight seasons without having a first round pick. Now, obviously, they could make a trade later on to get back into the first round at some point. But as of right now, with the first round picks that they're now giving up for the next couple seasons for Stafford, on paper they will go 7 consecutive seasons without a first round pick. Personally, I think that's stupid, and I think that's awful management of picks. Now I get it. If you're a team that's trying to compete, okay, and you do compete for the most part, well, maybe you make the argument you don't need the first round picks as much. Okay, sure. But there's going to come a time where the Aaron Donalds aren't going to be there. Jalen Ramsey isn't going to be there. Cooper Kupp will get older. Robert Woods will get older. All of these guys that you're relying on to not care about those first round picks at some point are not going to be there. And so to me, I'm okay with trading a first round pick every once in a while. I don't have an issue with that. But there comes a point in time where you are drafting in the first round. You want a guy that can help you immediately right away. Now, I'm not going to be the first person to talk about the LA Rams because I don't watch their games. I don't watch them every week. But there's always something you can improve on. And I just feel that If you can get a Super Bowl out of this, okay, then great. Then who gives a damn about the first round picks? Awesome. But there comes a point in time where you are going to need the picks, and it will probably come back to bite them in the butt. So, what are your thoughts?
Honestly, I mean, is it advised to not have a first round pick for 7 straight years? Obviously not.
Right.
Are first round picks important in the NFL? Very. If it's basketball, baseball, whatever, I don't care. However, at the end of the day, they just won a playoff game, and they just made a Super Bowl not too long ago. Did they win one? No. But they've had more success in the last 3 years than most of the teams in football. So if that's what you're gonna get by not having any first round picks, I'll take it. The Vikings haven't. Well, I would say they haven't sniffed the Super Bowl. I guess they made the NFC Championship, but they've gone further than my Vikings have in the last however many years. And my Vikings have had all sorts of first round picks. So, I mean, again, yeah, it's not advised. I think could they have possibly made it so they didn't get rid of quite as many first round picks and still acquire these guys? Probably. But if your strategy is to go get the Ramseys and the Brandon Cooks originally, and then they traded him away, but the Cooks and the Ramseys of the world for a first round pick and just, fixing your needs immediately via trades, I'm fine. Now, yes, in the future, 4 or 5 years from now, they're probably, especially when Stafford's like, 38, 39, 40, they're going to be awful probably unless they do really good in the second and third round. I get that. But, I don't worry about 5 years from now if you're good now. I get it. But, it's unlikely. But what happens if the Rams win a Super Bowl the next 3 years, which they have a better chance than, I'd say they're at least a top third football team. They got a somewhat of a chance, better than most. And if they get a Super Bowl, then nobody's going to care. And also, they're going to be, like I said, and you mentioned, yeah, they're going to be really bad in a few years. But honestly, they might be so bad because they haven't had first round picks. Then they can just go start over and get another quarterback, number 1 or number 2 overall, anyways. I'd rather be really, really bad than be like 4-12. So I don't think it's that big of a deal, to be honest.
So how far do you think right now can the Rams make it with Matthew Stafford as their quarterback?
The NFL, potentially all the way. I don't think so. But I think they just won a playoff game this year. They have the number 1. I don't think their defense is the best in football, but they have the number 1 ranked defense. They're clearly a top 5 defense. If Ramsey, Donald, all those guys come back next year, and then, it looked like they might have finally found something with Cam Akers at the running back spot with Kupp and Woods. The Rams could easily make it at least the conference championship, I think, next year. Yeah. It depends how good Stafford really is. It's hard to tell how good Stafford honestly is because he's had nothing for so long. But, I think they're going to be a very quality team next year.
I think so too. I feel at times Jared Goff's problem, he was a very off and on quarterback, and we've talked about this before. When Jared Goff is playing well, he looks like the best quarterback in the NFL. But when Jared Goff is not playing well, you would rather have Nathan Peterman in their quarterback.
I wouldn't go that far.
Yeah, well, it's close. It's a toss-up. So I think maybe the Rams just got to a point where it was like, you're not consistent enough for us. You're young, but, let's get someone who has had some success but has been consistent throughout their career. And that's kind of what Matthew Stafford has been. I'm pumped for Matthew Stafford because this is a guy that has had the majority of his career wasted in Detroit, just like the Calvin Johnsons, the Barry Sanders, those types of guys who retired early because the franchise was just awful. So I'm excited for Matthew Stafford. Hopefully, I would assume that this is a playoff team that he's going on, and maybe they make a run. Like I said, I don't know if they go all the way, but I think we have seen what Stafford has been able to do with minimal help, and minimal is like minimal, like nothing. So if he has stars all around him, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Higbee's solid, a nice running back in Cam Akers, a decent offensive line, and a great defense too, I think Stafford might be having a fun year next year, and I'm pumped for him to see how it goes.
Yeah, I feel good for Stafford, that's for sure.
And then as far as Jared Goff going to Detroit, what can Detroit expect on that end?
I mean, I don't think Goff's bad, like you said. He's just inconsistent. Depending on the week, I'd take Goff over Stafford. I think Stafford's better because he's consistent. Goff's not. But I mean, let's be honest. If they couldn't win with Stafford, they're not going to win with Goff. So I mean, I think Goff will be all right. He'll be serviceable. They'll win some games, but they'll still be the 5-11, 6-10 Detroit Lions, if not worse.
I do like this for Dan Campbell's side of things, though. Coming in as a new head coach, maybe he was preparing to work with Stafford. I don't know. But, he's coming in, head coach, and now he has a young quarterback, too, that has had some success at times. And, maybe they can work something there and figure something out. And we'll have to see. I don't know. But that'll be interesting to see what happens this year. If Jared Goff will be biting
Josh ready to
kneecap
bite a kneecap off.
Yeah. Oh man, that's funny. So Houston Texans have a new head coach. We'll see if it's enough to convince Deshaun Watson to stay.
Yeah.
But they hired Baltimore Ravens assistant coach David Culley to be their next head coach. 65 years old, spent the last 2 seasons in Baltimore, but has been an NFL coach for 27 seasons. So he has been around a long guy, has seen a lot of different players, a lot of success at times that he has seen. Personally, I don't know too much about this guy, but, being part of the Baltimore Ravens team that has had some success the last couple of years, maybe he can bring that over to Houston as well. What do you think about this?
I mean, yeah, to be honest, I don't really know much about the guy either. But I just, especially considering, from my knowledge, they were the last one to fill their coaching opening, correct? Or is anybody else out there?
Nope.
To me, it's like, no, I would have just waited and got the enemy if it were me. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, if they think this is their guy, then they think this is their guy, I guess. I mean, it's probably going to be better than Bill O'Brien, regardless. But, yeah. I mean, me personally, I would have waited and just got the enemy.
So this is a thought that I've had about this, and we'll get back to Culley in a second here. And I saw a little clip of this on Part of My Take, which is the podcast one of the podcasts that Barstool Sports put out. And one of the guys on there made a comment of, what if Bieniemy doesn't want to be a head coach? Think about it. He's the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs. Andy Reid is getting older. He's an old guy. He's not going to be. I don't know how much longer he's going to be around. But what if, he told Bieniemy something along the lines of, hey, 4 or 5 years, I'm going to retire, and then it's your team. If I'm Bieniemy, I think I'm sticking it out the 4 years there to have Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill probably, Travis Kelce probably, and who knows what other young stars they maybe bring up then too. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that? Do you think that this is a guy that should want to be a head coach, or should he stay?
I mean, at the end of the day, it's up to each their own. I mean, if you want to be a coach, you want to be a coach. If you don't want to be a head coach, then you don't want to be. It's not for me to say, but I mean, potentially that's the issue. That's the thing. I mean, I think that's why most think Josh McDaniels backed out of the Colts job at the last second. I think most people speculate that it's his job when Belichick's finally gone. So I mean, potentially that could be the same here with Bieniemy. I don't know. I mean, obviously, taking Reid's job would be a better first spot than anywhere else. That's for sure. I just feel like if you really want to be a coach, I personally find it hard to believe he'd want to wait that long rather than just going and trying to, beat the Chiefs and Andy Reid. But, I mean, potentially. I mean, I guess I didn't really look at it that angle.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see here, as far as what he decides to do. But Culley, going back to him quick, he's never been an offensive coordinator at the NFL level. He was an assistant head coach for Kansas City from 2013 to 2016, and spent the 2017 and 18 seasons as Buffalo's quarterback coach. So it's kind of the more recent experience that he has had lately here, but. We'll have to see what happens. I don't know if that's going to be enough to keep Deshaun Watson there. Also, 65 years old, coming in as a first-time head coach. Who knows how long he'll be around because you're not getting any younger. But we'll see what happens there. Moving on from football, though, New York Yankees added another arm. They traded for Jamison Tyone from the Pittsburgh Pirates. They were traded for the Yankees for 4 prospects. The prospects included Miguel Yahuri, Roansy Contreras, Michael Escado, and Kanan Smith. I more than likely probably butchered 3, if not all 4 of those names, but, oh well. So this is interesting to me. I like it for the Yankees side of things. Obviously, losing Tanaka, him going back to Japan to pitch there, and with Severino, not being 100% to start the season, if he'll probably come back later on. And then obviously losing James Paxton, J. Happ as well too. I like this. I think Tyone's a young pitcher. I think he's a guy that, if given the right situation, he might be able to thrive. And I like this for the Yankees. What do you think?
I mean, I definitely like the deal. Plus, the 4 guys they gave up are probably going to be terrible, and Tyone's probably going to be a Cy Young winner because it's the Pirates who made the deal. So, anytime the Pirates get rid of somebody, they end up being a stud. But no, I mean, in all honesty, Tyone's a quality pitcher. He's got an 8.2 career WAR, 29 and 24 with a 3.67 ERA. But he's only played 7 games in the last 2 seasons, none last year, with Tommy John, and he had, I believe he had cancer before that.
Yeah.
So, I have my doubts of whether he's actually going to be, able to rely upon, if you're going to be able to rely upon him to consistently be out there and pitching. And, the Yankees have enough injuries that they deal with. But I don't know much about the prospects they got rid of, but being that it was 4, I'm assuming none of them are too high up there. It's minimal risk for potential high reward. And honestly, as good as the Yankees are, they potentially are the best roster in the American League. Their starting rotation really does not look very good right now.
Yeah.
They got Cole, but besides that, like you mentioned, they lost Tanaka, Paxton, Happ. When Severino comes back, if he's the same old Severino, then yeah, that's a quality one too. But there's a lot of question marks there. Mm-hmm. So they need starting pitching. So Tyone's a good addition. But I have my doubts as to whether he's going to be the Tyone that we have seen in the past. But yeah, I still say it's a good trade. It's definitely worth it.
I think the Yankees are they're hoping that these last 2 pitcher free agent signing, well, I guess trade and signing with Corey Kluber as well too. I think they're banking on Kluber and Tyone both being what they can be and what they have been in the past. And if that's the case, then, if they're a shell of how they were at one point, Tyone's kind of weird because he has had a lot of hype behind him, and at times he has performed very, very well.
Oh, yeah. He's looked very well at times.
But I don't think he's truly lived up to the high standards that were kind of put on him coming up through the Pittsburgh farm system. And I think, like you've kind of mentioned before, maybe take that with a grain of salt because Pittsburgh typically is not developing players too well. And so maybe it was one of those things. He wasn't on a good team. What wasn't good development around him. So maybe that's why. But
yeah, I pretty much second that. I forgot about Kluber. So, I mean, they do have him, but both Kluber and Tyone, I think, come with big question marks. If they both pan out, the Yankees, I think, will definitely be the team to beat in the American League. But if not, the starting rotation of theirs could definitely, I mean, potentially even affect them not even winning the division. So,
Worth
but
a
yeah,
shot.
I mean, it's still worth a shot to get Tyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm
And
interested.
honestly, for the Pirates, you might as well. I mean, you're not going anywhere anyways, so you might as well load up.
Trade all your good players for something while you can now.
Yeah, the very few good players they have.
Yeah, not many. Well, they've traded about all the good ones that they've had the last few years, so
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. That's kind of a shame. Pittsburgh is seems like such a cool ballpark and such a cool
Oh,
just
PNC looks so cool.
oh man, and those couple years that they were making those playoff runs and the wild card game against Cincinnati, that looked like an electric place to be at.
And I've always liked.
I hope they
I've
get
always
there.
liked the Pirates, but
Yeah.
Pittsburgh wins enough with the Steelers and Penguins though, so they'll be all right.
Right. They have to have one team that's subpar. They can't be like Boston, have every sport team win.
Right. Every sport team wears the same colors in Pittsburgh too, black and yellow.
Black and yellow, black and yellow. Well, speaking of Boston, they pulled off a trade here with the Yankees.
Yeah, that's a rarity.
It is a rarity. It has not happened since 2014, the last time that a trade with the Yankees happened. But they got Adam Ottavino for a prospect, Adam Ottavino and Frank Irman for a player to be named later or cash considerations.
And just to touch on the whole Yankee Red Sox trade, I'm glad it happened. Some reason people think you cannot trade within your division. I think it's the dumbest thing ever. I understand, yes. Now, I don't want to put salt in the wounds, and we'll get to it later, but, Arenado getting traded to the Cardinals, right? I mean, yeah, I'm sure if he went to the Dodgers or, the Padres, it would hurt even more. I get that. But at the end of the day, you do what's going to make your team better. If it makes the team of your division better, it very well might. But you do what's best for you. If that means trading within your division, I don't care. Do it. There's no reason you should suffer just because you don't want your division rival to be better. So I'm glad this trade happened. Now, obviously, it's not a very big trade. I mean, Ottavino's solid, but it's a 34-year-old reliever. It's not like we're talking about Aaron Judge getting traded over. But still, I mean, I'm glad to see this trade between a rivalry because I don't know why nobody does it, and I think it's the dumbest thing in the world.
I agree.
Anyways.
I agree 100% with everything that you said there. I think if the best offer on the table for someone that you're looking to trade is someone in your division, well, pull the dang trigger. I don't care.
Exactly. You're telling me if obviously this is not realistic, but you're telling me if the Packers said I'll give you Rodgers for Cousins, you're not going to do it, but you'll trade if the Packers offer me Rodgers for Cousins, but the Niners offer me Garoppolo for Cousins, you're telling me you're going to do the Garoppolo trade because it's the Niners, not the Packers? No.
Yeah.
You do what's best for you.
No, I agree. Obviously, and you kind of mentioned it too, as far as the fans go, yeah, it would suck to see somebody, your franchise guy that you just, I'm not saying Ottavino's a franchise guy, but just, for argument's sake, to have the guy, trading in the division. But anyways, we'll get back to this here. Ottavino, obviously, I know him pretty well, played with the Rockies for a few years, one of the better relief pitchers that we've had in a while. Probably the best.
Relief pitchers.
That's also that. Probably the best slider in the game too. Oh, I mean, his slider is absolutely a dang frisbee he's throwing out there. For the Red Sox, obviously they're a team that's going through. See, it's hard to say the Red Sox are going through a rebuilding phase because when it looks like they're
best team every year.
Exactly. When it looks like they're awful 1 or 2 years. Well, okay, now they just signed 10 free agents for $800 million, and they're right at the top again. But I will say pitching staff that needs veteran guys that have had experience. And Adam Ottavino has had experience and has had a lot of success before. So I like it for Boston.
The difference between pitching staff and lineup the Red Sox have the biggest gap in Major League Baseball. I mean,
Yeah.
you still have Bogarts, I mean, they just got rid of Betts, and they still have Bogarts, Devers, Martinez. Did they lose Benintendi?
Nope, he's still there.
Benintendi. I mean, even Verdugo's solid. Christian Vasquez. They got all sorts of good hitters still, and their pitching is just terrible.
Yeah.
So I mean, if they can find any pitching at all, they can be competitive. So I mean, obviously this Ottavino trade helps. I'm not even sure what they got rid of. What did you say again?
So the Red Sox just it's either going to be a player to be named later or cash consideration.
Yeah.
So
essentially, they're practically just getting Ottavino. I mean, honestly. So I mean, even if he doesn't pan out, he doesn't pan out. But obviously, I mean, it's worth it for them. Now he is 34 and he had a 5.89 ERA last year.
Yeah.
However, the year prior to that, he had a 1.9, which was his best season ever at age 33. Relievers are kind of hit or miss. They'll be bad for 8 years, and then all of a sudden they'll be the best reliever in the league for 3. Or they'll be really good for 2, and then they'll suck. It's so hard to tell what a reliever is going to do year in and year out. But Ottavino's got nasty stuff, and I think there's a better chance. I mean, I think there's a very good chance he's at least a 3.5 or lower, And he's only got like 17 career saves. As good as he is, he's never really been a closer, but that doesn't really mean anything. He should be a very quality 7th or 8th inning guy for him, and an arm they desperately need. And obviously he knows the division well because he's been, so that helps. So good trade for Boston, and the Yankees obviously just must have wanted to move on from him, so they figured they'd get at least a little tiny something back in return for him, I suppose. I don't know, but good trade for Boston, I'd say.
Unless that player to be named later turns out to be a future Hall of Famer, I don't think Boston's going to be kicking themselves too much for this one. But
yeah, I don't think they'll be kicking themselves like this ain't like Babe Ruth over to the Yankees back.
Oh yeah, curse of the Bambino. Oh man, Philadelphia Phillies got their catcher back, JT Realmuto, comeback 5-year deal worth $115 million. Average per year is about $23 million. That is the highest ever for a catcher, topping former Minnesota Twins catcher Joe Mauer annual salary of $23 million. So he's got to beat there. Apparently, some specifics. Mauer's contract was an extension. Realmuto's free agent deals were 36% more than Brian McCann's previous record for a catcher of 5 years, $85 million with the Yankees. I like this a lot. I think as far as catchers go in the game, they are few and far between. But I think JT Realmuto is definitely the cream of the crop as far as the catchers go.
Without a doubt.
And I don't really think it's close. I mean, Posey ain't the same anymore. Molina ain't the same. McCann is all right.
Contreras would be your best.
Contreras, yeah. Probably Contreras. I like this. Realmuto obviously had success with the Marlins as well, too. Is a guy that has a big power bat that can hit pretty well, and his defense is average. So if you can get a catcher who is a good defender but can also hit, which seems a lot easier said than done, but a lot of catchers can't hit. They can usually play pretty decent defense. That'll be interesting to see for them. But I like this. I like Phillies getting their catcher back.
Yeah, I mean, career 275 hitter, 328 on base, so he doesn't walk a lot, but 275 average, 95 career home runs, 19.8 WAR. Heck, if your catcher bat's 270, it's solid. And this guy hits 270 plus with average, and like you mentioned, he's a decent defender. He's clearly the best catcher in baseball. Here, the Twins fan in me last year was saying Mitch Garver was after the season he had 2 years ago, and then he was just absolutely abysmal last year. So yeah, Realmuto's clearly the best catcher in baseball, and the Phillies desperately need him because, well, Atlanta's got one of the best offenses in baseball. Nationals just won a World Series 2 years ago, and the Mets, although they just lost out on Bauer, have a pretty good-looking roster of themselves over there. So you're going to need a squad to compete in that division, and having the best catcher in not only the division but all of baseball is going to help you out. And although it's the most money that a catcher's ever gotten, it's not like they're paying him $35 million like some of these guys are getting. So I'd say it's a great great deal for Philly. I'd be pumped that he's back, and good for Arenado. He deserves every penny of it.
Realmuto is the third player on the Phillies with a contract more than $100 million. Bryce Harper is on the third year of a $330 million deal, and Zach Wheeler is on the second year of a 5-year, $118 million deal. So the Phillies have a lot of hype. If they don't make the playoffs this year,
They won't.
they got to figure something out, because you can't be throwing out all this money for having no playoff experience.
They still need more pitching, and they play in a really good division, so I don't see it.
Yeah, they got to try and make a trade or something, get some pitcher. I thought maybe they would have been really, trying to get big in on the Trevor Bauer thing. Obviously they're not afraid to throw money around, and we'll get to the Trevor Bauer one here shortly, but him signing for over $100 million, well, you have three other guys on your.
The fact they didn't at least pull even like a Lance Lynn or anything in is really surprising.
Yeah. But anyways, things that I've read, really respected guy in the clubhouse. Everyone loves him. He's kind of a down-to-earth but a hard-working guy there. So it's nice to see, Phillies going back, and JT Realmuto's getting the contract that he deserves with the Phillies. So that's good to see. Apparently, he was seeking at one point over $200 million before the season started, but obviously with the pandemic and everything, that obviously did not happen. So he has to settle for 115 instead. I'm sure he's just upset.
200, holy cow.
Steven Matz, former New York Met, traded to the Toronto Blue Jays. Toronto sends back Sean Reed-Foley, Josh Frankowski, and Yennsy Diaz. Talking to Aaron Fitzner, who was just on for the Toronto Blue Jays podcast that I just did, he's a Toronto fan. He thinks that Sean Reed-Foley potentially might be the biggest name to come from this. He's pitched a little bit in Toronto, had a little bit of success. But what do you think about this? I really like this for Steven Matt's side of things. He's never really lived up to the big hype that was around him coming up as a New York Mets pitcher with, well, when you have R.A. Dickey, DeGrom, Syndergaard, Matt Harvey, the list goes on of players that have had success there, and he really didn't live up to that. Sometimes you just need to change the scenery to reinvent your game and play better. So what do you think about this?
I don't think it's a bad trade for the Blue Jays because, they have a great lineup. Pitching is what they need. So, I don't fault them for trying. However, I don't think it's really going to pan out. Matz has never really lived up to the potential. 4.35 career ERA. That's not that bad. Honestly, nowadays that's about average for a starter. But and it was 7.0 WAR. But he had a 9.68 ERA in 2020. And he's 29 and he still really hasn't done much of anything yet. He was supposed to, but never really did. And now you mentioned it, new scenery. Maybe that's all it takes. Some guys switch leagues and they're really, really good. Some guys switch leagues and it really screws them over. So we'll see what happens. But I can tell you what, Citi Field's a lot more hitter friendly than Rogers Center. The division itself, maybe not, but now he's got to go up against the Yankees. The Rays are a pretty good hitting lineup. The Blue Jays, or the Red Sox. So I'd say he's going to have a tougher path in Toronto, but we'll see. Maybe it'll work out for him. I don't know much about those prospects, but I trust, Aaron knows what he's talking about. So I think for the Mets, it's a good trade. They have Stroman, Syndergaard eventually, obviously DeGrom.
I forgot about Stroman. Yeah.
Yeah, they got plenty of hit. I thought they were going to get Bauer. Obviously, they didn't. So they got plenty of pitchers to go around. If I were them, I'd kind of be fed up with keep hoping you have something on the Mats too. So I'd say a fairly good trade for both teams.
Yeah. For the Toronto Blue Jays now, they signed a couple other pitchers, Robbie Ray and Tyler Chatwood, in the offseason too here. So, Hyun-Jin Ryu, who's obviously the ace of that team, and that young pitcher, Nate Pearson, who has come up and played very well in the few starts he had last year.
Throws like a hundo, right?
Throws 100, yeah. Toronto, they've been pretty busy on the offensive side of things. Obviously, George Springer being the biggest addition that they've had so far
They've
this
probably been the
offseason.
most active team this offseason.
They have. So I'm intrigued to see
Them and the Padres.
how Toronto does this season. I definitely think they're still a playoff team, in my opinion. I mean, they did it last year. And, say what you will as far as the shortened season, but you got to play the schedule that's in front of you, and they did and made the playoffs.
I mean, they made it because 8 teams made it, but I mean, credit them, they still made it. But I mean, they're going to be competitive. I don't see making the playoffs, but they got a shot.
Well, I mean, Yankees are definitely taking the AL East, and then you got the White Sox and Twins.
I wouldn't say definitely, but most likely.
I would be surprised if the Yankees don't win the division.
I would be too, but I wouldn't say definitely. I mean, you still have the Rays there.
Right now, who is your playoff teams for the? Obviously, we'll make our predictions at some point later in the year. But if
I would assume the Yankees win it, but even though the Rays lost their top 2 starters, you can never completely count them out. And Boston goes from worst to first every year. I can't possibly see it with their pitching staff, but you never know. But we'll give it to the Yankees. I don't see anywhere where the White Sox and Twins don't both make it. The A's should win their division. I guess the second wild card is kind of open now that.
That's what I'm saying. I think they're a wild card team.
They might be a second wild card by default because the AL's really only got 4 solid squads right now. But I still think somebody's going to surprise them over the Blue Jays. I don't think they're quite there yet.
I'll have to see. I think they might make it.
We'll see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
So they're definitely in contention. Plus, they're deep, so an injury here or there is not necessarily going to kill them.
Right. And so we'll get from that Toronto move to another Toronto move. Marcus Semien also signing with Toronto, 1 year, $18 million deal. A couple of years ago, I believe this man finished 3rd in the MVP voting for the American League. So I really like this for Toronto. He should have. I agree 100%. But obviously,
he did have a heck of a year, though.
I really like this for Toronto. Throw him in at second base. 1 year, a prove it kind of deal. If he's a fraction of what he was the year that he finished 3rd in the MVP voting, Toronto's loving it. And $18 million, obviously no salary cap. That's not going to hurt you at all. So I really like this a lot. Decent defender, and he can hit really good. So what do you think about it?
I was hoping the Twins would get him, so that was a little disappointing. But for Blue Jays, I think it's a great deal. I mean, like you said, he was 3rd in MVP 2 years ago. Now, I don't think you're going to get that Semien, but I don't think you're going to get last year's Semien either. You should at least get a pretty quality, probably top 10 shortstop. Well, shortstop's pretty deep. He's definitely above average shortstop that's going to get you some wins. Now, he did bat .223 last year, which is obviously not good, but something was up. I mean, obviously it was a shortened season, but for whatever reason, there was a lot of guys struggle last year. Your previous 2 NL MVPs, Cody Bellinger and Christian Yelich, struggled mightily, and that's just 2 of many. I mean, there was a lot of guys who really struggled last year that you aren't used to seeing struggle. So I'm not going to buy too much into that. But I also don't think he's going to be the 33 home runs, 123 run guy he was in Oakland in 2019. But he had 35 errors in 2015. I believe he was the White Sox at the time. He only had 12 in 2019. So he's a much improved defender.
35?
Yeah, he was absolutely abysmal. He was he was so bad. He had 21 and 16, which is obviously a lot better, but that ain't great either. Yeah, he had 35 errors in 2015, so he was pretty abysmal defensively. But 2 years ago, he was, in like Gold Glove talks. So he's much, much, much improved there. So he's a quality shortstop. It's a good deal for him, and he's only 30 years old.
Now, I would imagine, along with you, that he probably would.
And honestly, though, I don't know if he's,
He probably would be playing second base.
I was just gonna say. Now that I think of it, I don't think he's gonna play short though. But he's gonna get some games there, I would think.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, now that I think of it, he'll probably be at second anyways.
Nelson Cruz, probably like this one a little bit, coming back to your Minnesota Twins, 1 year, $13 million deal. Last season, for a stretch of time, probably an MVP candidate and probably the front runner.
The only reason he's not is because he's a DH, which to me is stupid. But
yeah. But anyways, you got to be pretty pumped about this one.
Oh, definitely. Now, granted, I never expected him not to resign, so it wasn't necessarily like a woohoo, yay, like really exciting, like, oh, we just got somebody I didn't expect to get. It would have just been deflating if we didn't get him. But obviously, yeah, it's still, awesome. I mean, this has been, honestly, this is not just Twins maybe talking. Over the last 2 years, you give me a hitter who's been better than Nelson Cruz over the last 2 years.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head. I don't know if I can.
Nelson Cruz
more consistent.
Has been unbelievable the last 2 years. He's got 80. Well, I mean, last year is kind of hard to put in perspective.
Mookie Betts, maybe it's about the only one I can think of.
I mean, all I'm saying is there's not many hitters better than Cruz the last 2 or 3 years.
There is not. That's correct.
And yeah, he's 40, but he's had the best 2 or 3 years of his career at 38 and 39. Yeah. So he's going to slow down eventually, but I wouldn't count on, him just rapidly decelerating like, Pujols and Miggy either. I have faith in the guy. So I'm pumped. I mean, he's our main RBI guy. He's our main home run guy. He's great in the locker room. The Twins have a lot of Hispanic players. We have a lot of Dominican Republic, Puerto Rican, Venezuelan guys. He's been a big mentor to a lot of them. And I think it's helped. And I mean, I honestly just love the dude, so I'm pumped to have him back. And I think if he did leave, the only team I thought it was pretty much between us and the White Sox. In fact, the White Sox don't have him is a huge plus. So that's I'm very thankful he's not there.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it was going to be if there was going to be a DH in the National League.
He'd be
then that would have been your only concern. But I think that's big time that I know you're a big DH in both leagues guy, but I'm sure you're probably pretty happy that they decide not to have it because now you get Nelson Cruz back.
I mean, I think they should have a DH in the NL, but for the Cruz aspect, I'm awfully glad that we still have him because of that rule. Because I'm pretty sure he'd be a Dodger right now if the NL adopted the DH.
At this point, I wouldn't be surprised. Everyone's going to the Dodgers. Maybe Kevin Durant will sign with the Dodgers.
Oh, God.
Well, speak of the Dodgers, might as well just bring up that one while we're here. This is just fresh today. Trevor Bauer, 3-year, $102 million deal with the LA Dodgers. That includes an opt-out clause after this season and the 2022 season. Yeah, this is something else. This is a nice pitching staff. Clayton Kershaw, Walker Buehler. Now you have Trevor Bauer, David Price, and Dustin May. That's a good pitching staff.
And Julio Urias, maybe.
And Julio Urias, if they need to throw him in there. Yeah, that is. I think that just added like 10 more losses to the Rockies' loss column this season just by adding Trevor Bauer. But I guess initial thoughts on this, I certainly thought he was going to be signing with the Mets. And
after yesterday, I thought he was because it seemed to be everybody thought he was going to. But I guess my initial thoughts is just how good the Dodgers are. I mean, as much as the Padres have done this year, they still weren't the best team in that division coming in today, and not in my opinion. I think the Dodgers were still clearly the best team in baseball. They were clearly the best team in baseball last year. They have been for 3 or 4 years. They just didn't get it done in the playoffs when it mattered. Well, besides the 1 year, Boston was really, really good. But the Dodgers were unbelievable last year. Now, with the addition of Bauer, I don't think last year, Bauer was exceptional. He took a real big step up. I don't know. I'm expecting about a 3.2-ish ERA from him. I'm not expecting a 2 ERA out of him again this year. But, I think that's the worst. And even if he does that, to add with Buehler, Kershaw, this team might break the Mariners' single season win record. I'm not kidding you. They're that good. They're
Yeah,
that good.
I could see it.
I put $10 in them to win the World Series last year. I won that. I'm gonna put a lot more on them this year. I mean, they're
I'll have to
that
join
good.
you.
They are that good. And the Diamondbacks, Giants, and Rockies aren't. So I mean, this team's gonna win the World Series again.
And if they don't, I would be very surprised. I would be very surprised. No, I love it. I love it. You know, Trevor Bauer, one thing I loved about this entire process is that he didn't show his cards as far as where he was leaning more towards. He would make little things on Twitter every once in a while, like, oh, I'm eating here. You know, got any recommendations in LA? Or, hey, I'm in, Oakland or whatever.
Didn't he even do that for Colorado?
He did it for Colorado, too. And my first thought was, if we sign Trevor Bauer, I will never talk crap about the Rockies again in my entire life. But I knew that was not going to happen. But I like this, for the Dodgers, teams that are really good for a consistent period of time do stuff like this because they're not afraid to. Now, yes, the Dodgers have had more than multiple seasons that they probably should have won World Series, but they didn't, but they were still one of, if not the best teams in baseball those years. And they're showing it again, not afraid to spend money and get another big name pitcher. And the teams that suck and are awful continue to make awful decisions, and that's why they continue to suck. So Dodgers, as much as I hate to say it, but they're going to be the team to beat this year. They're going to be. And if they don't, then I don't know. I guess I don't know anything about baseball.
Poor Padres fans. Maybe the best team they've ever had, and they're still going to lose their division by 6 games.
Yeah.
If not more. They'll probably lose by 10 games.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the moment we've all been waiting for.
I'm just gonna let you take it. Can't wait for this.
This is a day of mourning. This is a day of sadness amongst Colorado Rockies fans. I feel like I need my sunglasses right now, like I'm at a funeral. If you aren't
the Dorton you knew a week ago, he's gone.
He is gone, and he is not coming back for a long while. The Colorado Rockies, folks, if you are not already aware of, traded probably the best player in franchise history, the best third baseman in baseball, and quite possibly a future Hall of Famer, and Nolan Arenado.
Trade?
Nolan Arenado. And you may be wondering. What's that?
Why would they do that?
That's a great question. I guess we'll get to that. Now you may be saying to me, Lucas, well, you got to be pleased. You traded Nolan Arenado. Surely you had to have gotten some of the best prospects and players in the game.
Did you?
Well, I'm here to tell you that not only are you wrong, you are really wrong.
But folks, you got money back, right?
Oh no, but that's the best part. It's not only did we trade Nolan Arenado, but we also gave them $50 million.
Well, you guys are really generous.
We are. That's just the Rockies.
You must get a sportsmanship trophy or something for this.
I think we should get the At Least You Tried trophy. The Colorado Rockies, folks, like I mentioned, traded Nolan Arenado to the St. Louis Cardinals. Nolan Arenado and $50 million to the St. Louis Cardinals for Austin Gomber, Mateo Gil, Elirius Montero, Tony Lacey, and Jake Summers. Now,
sounds like the next Murderer's Row.
Well, considering that 2 of those players are infielders and the rest are pitchers, I don't know about that.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I mean, you do need pitchers.
Yeah. Well, we do need pitching. That's
you need a
sure.
third baseman now too.
So let me start off by saying this. As a Rockies fan, did I expect that at some point we were going to trade Nolan? Yes, I did. Because it had been talked about for the last couple seasons, and I figured that at some point that's something that we were going to do. Now, having said that, did I expect it to be this early? No, I didn't. The Colorado Rockies are a franchise that can at times find success, but then piss off the best players on the team. And they do that by not being competitive in free agency after we make the playoffs 2 straight years, and a number of other reasons. Now, we just signed Nolan Arenado to a big contract extension that should have ended his career in Colorado. But no, our GM doesn't communicate with him. Our owners say they care about winning when all they're really in it for is the money. It's frustrating to see a team constantly screw up things left and right every single year. If you are going to trade Nolan Arenado, you better dang well not only be getting a proven pitching talent or a proven player that is not 87 years old, that is currently on the Cardinals major league team right now. With him, I also would have expected to get some prospects on the top 100 pipeline list for the St. Louis Cardinals. Well, we didn't do that either. We got the best player from this is projected to maybe be a number 4 for our starting rotation and could potentially see the bullpen. That's what the Rockies, I think, are expecting from this.
Oh my gosh.
It is baffling to me. It is just absolutely just baffling to me.
And you gave them $50 million.
How you can have the best player, not just in the Rockies, but at his current position in baseball right now, and get peanuts in return. Now, the part that makes this even worse is the $50 million, and let me tell you why. Nolan Arenado has a potential opt-out clause after this season. So if he wants to leave, he can leave. Okay, I don't expect that to happen. But having said that, we gave him $50 million. Arenado is owed, I'm not sure how much money left, but he would be making $30 million this year. The St. Louis Cardinals are getting a free year of Nolan Arenado because we are essentially paying his contract for this season. Let me say that again, folks. Free, which means they are not paying him money to play for their team this season.
Plus
the Rockies are. The Rockies are. It is frustrating and it's sad because now if I'm Trevor Story, who's a free agent after this season, we have a lot of money now. But if I'm Trevor Story, I'm saying there is no amount of money you can offer me to stay with this team. I'm leaving after this year. And I would not blame him one bit, and I would be following him there too. But yeah, we botched it. We screwed it up. St. Louis, congratulations. You got Nolan Arenado for a bag of peanuts. And you also got $50 million too. I just don't expect how the Rockies can not be rebuilding. They say they're not rebuilding. They say they think they can compete, but then you do a move like that, and it obviously shows they're trying to rebuild, which I'm fine with. If you want to rebuild, just say you're going to rebuild. Don't say, oh, we're going to compete after you trade Nolan Arenado for nothing. But anyways, that is where I'm at right now. Nick?
I mean, trading Arenado is one thing. It's not something you want to see, but sometimes it's necessary. I don't necessarily think it was necessary. They haven't really been good the last 2 years, but I mean, they've got all sorts of talent. All it takes is a little pitching, and they can see the playoffs again. But if you're going to trade him, at least get something from him, and they got absolutely nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing. So if they got a good return for him, I'd say, it sucks you lost Arenado, but it wasn't a bad trade. Well, this is about as bad of a trade as it can be. So, I mean, it's just, I don't know. I'm glad I'm not in your shoes when it comes to that. But as far as the Cardinals, I think they were already the team to beat in that division because it's the worst division in baseball. Well, now they're definitely the team to beat in that division. As far as the Rockies, as awful as it would be, and it's just putting salt on the wound, I mean, you might as well look to trade for sure Blackman, being he's 30 plus.
Yep.
And unless Story tells you he's coming back, which you can't really rely on, and even if he does, I mean, God, you might want to just look at trading him too. I mean, there's really no point in having him if you're not going to have Arenado.
Yep.
And they weren't that good last year, even with Arenado. So, I mean, then again, if you're just going to get 4 nobodies and give $50 million away, then you might as well not trade Story either.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll take him off your hands.
By all means, don't worry. You probably won't have to give up a whole lot. You can probably just give us.
We'll give you Polanco and 3 scrubs, and then you give us Story and $25 million.
You know, I like it better. I'll give you $35 million.
Well, no arguments here.
You know, it's frustrating. You know, obviously, you know, there's not much more that I can say that can spin this in a positive way for the Rockies because there isn't.
And I was frustrated the Twins got rid of Rosario.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who by the way signed with Cleveland for $8 million. $8 million. You couldn't have given the guy $8 million for gosh sakes.
Couldn't have.
We cheer for the long teams.
So if I'm grading this trade, I'm giving the Cardinals an A and I'm giving the Rockies an F-. I don't know if it's possible to get an F-, but you just got one. So
I think they got a G. It's just worse. I don't know what it stands for. It's just worse than F.
Okay. Well, whatever
gross.
the worst,
G
whatever
for
whatever the worst possible trade you can do, or the worst possible grade you can get, that's what I'm giving them. Worst trade in baseball history. I can't think of a worse one. If you can, I would love to hear it because I can't. I cannot think of one. I challenge you. I challenge you as a sports person, baseball person, to think of a trade that is worse than this. I challenge you. Prove me wrong.
Babe Ruth?
Well, I'm not counting that one. I'm not gonna
Granted, at the time, Babe Ruth was not Babe Ruth. Arenado's already proved himself. But I think they did trade the guy for, like, a chicken on Broadway or something like that.
Oh. Well, anyways, that is the end of that rant. We'll move on to some other sad baseball news. Hall of Fame. There's not going to be no Hall of Fame this year because nobody could agree on getting 75%. I think Curt Schilling was the closest at like 72 or something, 73.
Yeah, but he didn't like that.
He didn't like that, and he wants to be removed off the ballot because he wants men to decide his fate, not people who don't have any idea of the game. I think it's funny, but more than likely, he probably would get in next year. But I understand.
He'd have a good chance of getting in next year.
Do you have any strong comments on that? I mean, I think it's obviously sucks to see that nobody gets.
At the end of the day, if you don't think a guy's worthy, it doesn't mean you should vote him just because he's the best of the class, just because the class is bad. However, there's definitely people who are worthy on the ballot, like Todd Helton, for instance. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if there legit wasn't any Hall of Fame worthy players, then, you know, no Hall of Famers for a year. That kind of sucks, but it's what should be. But that's not the case. There's definitely guys who are deserving. Me personally, I would have put in Bonds and Clemens. But even if you don't count them for the steroids, Helton should be in. I can't see how Schilling's not a Hall of Famer. That's just 2. So, yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a 70-year-old baseball writer, so what do I know?
Yeah, it is sad and it is interesting. I feel the only thing that held Schilling back was his off-the-field comments that he's had lately. Which do I agree with what he said? No, I don't. But you're not judging him for what he's done off the season. You're judging what he did on the field.
Technically, the Hall of Fame is like about character and whatnot too. But to me, that's dumb. It should just be: are you a good football player? Are you a good baseball player? Are you a good basketball player? Yes. All right, you're in. I don't care. Steroids is different. That's cheating the game. However, I still would put them in. But what you do off the field to me shouldn't matter. It really shouldn't. I know technically it's there in the rules or something like that, or the bylaws of the Hall of Fame, but I think it's dumb.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. Yeah, it's interesting to see. Hopefully now they can have this Hall of Fame, the one from last year, kind of celebrate it for this year and see how that goes since they didn't really get to have it. And finally, I see Larry Walker get enshrined there. But yeah, I like it. We'll have to see what happens here. But anyways, move on to NHL. A big trade happened there. Pierre-Luc Dubois was traded to the Winnipeg Jets from Columbus for Patrick Laine and Jack Roslovic. Winnipeg also got a third-round pick in the 2022 draft as well, too. Now, Dubois, 22 years old, restricted free agent in this coming offseason, apparently asked for a trade, and Coach John Tortorella wasn't too pleased about that and pretty much just benched him. He played a game. He played like 2 minutes and benched him the whole game. So Dubois is a very talented player. In 70 games last year, led the Blue Jackets with 49 points. And he's been one of the most impactful players on the team. And then as far as Patrick Laine goes, a really solid player for the Winnipeg Jets as well, too. He has one of the young goal scorers in the league. So it is kind of funny to see Laine, who was a number 2 pick in the 2016 draft, getting traded for the number 3 pick in the 2016 draft, and Dubois. So kind of funny how they flop places. But what are your thoughts on this?
I'd be ecstatic to be a Columbus fan. I know you mentioned, Laine's had kind of quote unquote, I guess, like character issues, if you want to call it that. But you'd have to be an awful disaster in the locker room in order for that trade to be worth it, in my opinion. They both got drafted the same year, second and third. Well, Laine's got 75 more goals, 17 more assists. His PS is 30.8 compared to Dubois' 17.2. His plus minus is -1 compared to Dubois' plus 20, but that's a lot to do with your team rather than you yourself. He's also played 69 more games. He's barely missed a game. I'd say Laine is far better. Laine is one of the best goal scorers in the entire National Hockey League. He led the league in power play goals 3 or 4 years ago. That's a league that has Alex Ovechkin in it.
Yeah.
I'd say Columbus definitely won this trade. I would not be happy if I were a Maple Leafs fan. That's for sure.
Jets.
Why did I say Maple Leafs? I don't know. It's hockey. I think it's these hockey divisions. They just got me all confused. Canada's only playing Canada now. I'm calling all the Canadian teams. I'm calling Winnipeg, Toronto. I don't know.
Well, it's an honest mistake.
Winnipeg. Sorry. The Jets.
Happens to the best of us.
The Jets.
Yeah, and I do think both of these
Maple Leafs got the other young stud over there, not Laine. Right. They got. So.
Right.
Sorry, the Jets. The Jets.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. No, I do like this though. Especially for the Columbus side of things. They have a guy there that's probably hungry to play and hungry to prove himself and show that Winnipeg screwed up by making this trade. Again, character issues every once in a while, but he's proven to be a solid young goal scorer, and that's what he's done, and he'll probably be doing that going there. Dubois, no knock at him. Also a very talented young player as well, too. But we'll have to see how Winnipeg treats him, how that environment goes for them, though.
The Wild played Winnipeg in the playoffs, I want to say 2 years ago. They whopped us. It wasn't only Laine. They had a bunch of guys. They're a big team, too. But, Laine destroyed us. He made it look easy. So, yes, Dubois is a good player, too. And you're getting a third-round pick, I think you mentioned. But to me, Laine is the far better player.
Oh.
And in my opinion, obviously goals isn't everything. Dubois got 17 less assists, but that's in 69 less games. So obviously, Dubois, he's got his assists per game is much better than Laine. But honestly, when it all comes down to it, it's very hard to win a Stanley Cup without a true true stud goal scorer on your team. It's really hard. And so if I can get a guy like Laine, I'm not passing it up.
No. Yeah,
Not a chance.
I like it. I like it. I'm interested to see how obviously both of these guys super super young, how both of these teams fare and these players fare 4 or 5 years down the road and see if they're still having that same impact on their new squads. Be led to assume that they are. But we'll see who won. You know, it's not too often that the 2 and 3 pick in any draft gets traded for each other.
Unfortunately, they won't be able to play against each other this year with the whole
Right.
Canada versus Canada only. But
Right. No. It'll be interesting to see, nonetheless. But anyways, we're at the end of this show. Nick, is there anything that you wanted to bring up or address here as far as sports stuff go?
not really, no.
Well, there you have it, folks. Episode 47 is a wrap here, but if you'd like to follow us on Twitter or social media, follow myself on Twitter at Lucas_Dorton, capital L and D. Follow Nick on Twitter at Doetkott. And if you would like to follow our official Twitter page at D&D_podcast, capital D's, capital P for that, be sure to like, subscribe, share. Definitely we appreciate all the support and stuff of everyone watching it and liking it and stuff. But if you'd like to be on an episode in the future, certainly let us know. We'd love to have you on. But anyways, folks, thank you for listening to episode 47 of the Dorton and Doetkott Debate podcast. And as for Nick and I, until next time, we are out.